My name is Ian Roya. Welcome to MOJO Talks. This is my second interview, and we're going to stick with sports. I have with me today that gay rugger, which should tell you everything you need to know about what this podcast is going to, this video blog. What is it? I don't even know. Like we're so digitally driven right now. It's a thing. We're talking this video. It's not quite a podcast, but it's MOJO Talks. And his real name is Devin Ilbañez, and he plays Major League Rugby. Welcome to the talk, Devin.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, you did unmask me a little bit. You unmasked the man behind the handle, but it's okay. I'll let it slide.
I mean, your name is in the Instagram as well.
I guess it's on there. Yeah. I guess you
Yeah.
wouldn't have to work that hard. I like the mystique though, the mystery.
Every time I think Mystique, because I'm a comic book fan, I think of Rebecca Romaine Stamos sliding across a concrete floor. But I get what you're trying to do.
Yeah, something a little bit different than that.
So for those of you who don't know, Devin plays rugby in the Major League Rugby, and maybe you can tell the audience what Major League Rugby is.
Sure. So, Major League Rugby is the professional league that plays in the US as well as Canada has one team. And it's just the only professional league that there is in North America right now for rugby. And it started 4 years ago, I believe was the first season. And I played with the Free Jacks in the 2019 exhibition season they played.
Nice. How long have you been playing the sport?
I've been playing rugby for 12 years.
Wow.
It's been a long time. And what's interesting also is since the seasons are broken up here, and I'm sure it's similar in Canada, like you have to take a break for the winter, I've probably played like at least 25 rugby seasons because I've played 3 seasons like kind of year round for the last, like 10 or so of those 12 years. So it's been a lot of rugby.
And then you have me who came into rugby at 35 years old because I'm insane. So I've only been playing for a year. I've been with the club for 2 years, but one of them has been in lockdown. So I'm quite the noob.
But that's the beauty of rugby, right? Like you can be somebody who's been playing for 12 years playing against somebody who just picked it up, and there's kind of space for all skill levels.
Yeah, I loved it because it was an opportunity for me to put a lot of my stress into and just hit people for 80 minutes. I mean, there are other benefits, like it helped me overcome diabetes, for example.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it's just a lot of fun. And you go from like mild-mannered Clark Kent reporter to like animal on their reputation.
It is a very surreal experience, right? Like when you go into a match and you kind of have those jitters and you're in your head about making that first tackle, when you like make those first contacts and you're just like zoned in, you're like, I've done it. I know it doesn't hurt. I'm feeling like invincible. Like it's an enthralling feeling, and it's something that I've like chased for a long time, obviously.
And I read that you have a gold medal. Maybe we should talk about that.
I actually, yeah, I won a gold medal in 2017 with the USA Maccabiah team at the World Maccabiah Games. So for those who don't know, the World Maccabiah Games is actually, I think, the third or fourth largest sporting event in the entire world. You've got athletes from a bunch of different countries, and the common factor is that we all have some form of Jewish heritage. So that was a massive accomplishment for me because I actually tried out to play for USA Maccabee when I was 19, way back in 2013, and I was one of the last people cut. So I ended up making the team this time around, and we won our first gold medal in, I think it was 20 years since we'd won gold in rugby 15s.
Nice, congratulations. I think that's a huge accomplishment. So I'm hearing that you're Jewish, and by your name, I'm gonna guess you're also Latino.
Yes, so my father has Puerto Rican heritage. He grew up in Spanish Harlem, but his family is from, Puerto Rico and the native Tainis and all that lovely background that we have. So, and then my mother's, Polish European Jew. So those are my two kind of mixing melting pots.
No, I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago, so
Oh,
melting
awesome.
of cultures is something that's quite normal for me, but seems to be extraordinary in my move to North America.
Yeah, Trinidad and Tobago. I've actually never been, but my partner actually did a recent trip to Antigua So that's
Nice.
pretty close by. Not too
Yeah.
recent, obviously. This was a while ago.
Yeah, we probably have to have you boys down for Carnival, which is just wild. It's like a week and a half of just partying and
Ooh.
lots of fun. We put you in like the tiniest costume and hit you with some sunscreen.
Yeah, it's the thing. I can handle the sunburns because I got that Puerto Rican heritage, but I don't know how my partner Fergus would fare. He's a little bit more prone to the burn.
It'll be all right. Sunscreen and a parasol, and it'll be great. I keep threatening my partner with that too, because he burns, so they can hang out together in the shade.
It's a struggle. It's like forget to put their sunscreen on, and then they're complaining about it for a few days.
So, like, the reason behind the handle is because you are the first openly gay rugby player in the Major League Rugby. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I was the first player to sign a contract with Major League Rugby who's openly gay, and I think I'm actually the first professional player in North America, as far as I know. I don't know if there are any in Canada who have already come out, but from what I've been told, that's I'm the first person to do it. So, but the reasoning behind the handle wasn't necessarily because I was the first openly gay Major League Rugby player. It was kind of more of a play on a lot of the fears that I had before I came out. So growing up, and I mentioned I played rugby for so long, I captained when I was in high school, I captained when I was in university, and I never told my teammates about my sexuality. It was something that I just kind of kept to myself. And a lot of my reasoning was I didn't want to be known as being that gay rugby player, right? I wanted to be known as being like a talented rugby player who works really hard and takes the game seriously and that, is a good leader. I didn't want all of my rugby accomplishments to be tied to my sexuality and have that be like a defining feature of me. But it was just a bit of a journey as you go on and you realize, well, why am I basing how open I'm going to be on, other people's potential perceptions or the labels that they're going to put on me? So that was when I got to this point where I was like, I can just label myself that gay rugger, and maybe, who knows, maybe another kid who has the same kind of fears that I did will see that and say, well, I don't have to worry about people calling me that gay rugger because he already took that trademark.
You find that rugby was open enough for you to be who you wanted to be, or was that in your head, or was that something that you had real fear of?
There was definitely real fear. I mean, I was never a player who was guaranteed a spot, right? I was never a guy who was some crazy physical specimen who it was a given that no matter what I was going to be on the field. So I always felt like I really had to scrape and grind for every opportunity that I got. And over the years there were, coaches that I would have who would use homophobic language or, make homophobic jokes and use kind of homophobic slurs as a way to belittle people. So I had a fear that, that would affect their perception of me as a player and make them feel like, oh, well, maybe we don't give him playing time. And so I think it was a very real fear that I had of, being worried about if it would affect my playing career.
And what was it like coming out? What was the reception like?
It was amazing. I mean, I never, when I made that post to come out, it was never about doing this massive thing where I would do all these interviews and, have a chance to talk to so many people and hopefully inspire people. I was really just doing it because personally I was in a really low and kind of a dark place and struggling with my own mental health. And, with my partner and I, he lives in London, I live in the United States, and we've been separated throughout the pandemic. And so I'd really been trying to find things that I could take control of that would, either immediately improve my life or at least bring some sort of kind of happiness or optimism to us that we could look forward to. And that's why I made that post. Is I really just did it as, kind of an open way to express my appreciation and just like my love for Fergus and for all the years that he was just there silently beside me while I was trying to accomplish this goal of coming out and finally being more outspoken.
Nice. In my experience here, because I came to rugby quite late, it's been nice. It's just been nice to see my union rally around us being there gay. So Toronto Rugby Union is just like Great. Now we have an outlet for queer kids to come to rugby. What do you need? You know, they're like, oh, every time it's been a year of, oh, by the way, we have a mixed abilities program. Do you want to be a flagship? So it's definitely one of those sports where there's a perception of it being hyper masculine. But
Hmm.
when you get into the sport, um, it's just it's at a grassroots level, I guess. It's just very welcoming, very open. Um, I've also seen like the straight teams do some of the gayest nonsense too.
Yeah, you do get a lot of it, and I think I think you're right by and large. It does depend where you are. It is accepting on the grassroots level, but it is also, the higher up and the kind of more competitive that you get, it does seem to get more and more of that kind of hyper masculine sort of traditional culture where it's all these, mostly straight athletes who are very like type A personalities and a lot of them set in their ways as well. So I don't know, it's a very complicated landscape because as much as I would like to say how positive rugby is, because it has been incredibly positive for me, like I did have those experiences throughout the years playing, and being called slurs during a match on the field is something I've experienced in other countries, and it is still an issue that we're facing, but it is awesome that there is at least that kind of intent from the higher level of the sport, like the Arrows and other organizations in Toronto that want to invest in it. Like that is a huge step that hopefully will cause sort of a trickle down effect to the grassroots.
And just for context from the listener, how old were you when you started, and how old were you when you came out?
So, well, I started playing rugby when I was 16, I want to say. Yeah, so I was about 16 years old, and I came out to my parents when I was 11. Um, I'd been telling people that I came out when I was 12, but my mom corrected me and she was like, "No, you were 11." I was like, "Okay, I guess I was 11." So I came out when I was 11, but I kept it separate from sport, and I picked up rugby when I was 16, and now I'm 27, and I I finally connected the two worlds together. So yeah, it was a very long journey, and I think that even though I was very comfortable with myself, I just rugby was such a huge central part of my life that I really enjoyed to have that kind of space where I felt like I could express myself and compete, that I was so worried about jeopardizing that in any way or bringing unnecessary attention to myself or being seen as somebody who was, intentionally trying to get attention.
Yeah, I think what you're doing is going to help a lot of people come to the sport, regardless of their back, not just being gay or part of the queer spectrum, but your openness to share your story. I think is going to bring a lot more people to the sport, which is something I'm very passionate about because like I picked it up as a slightly overweight 35-year-old and was crushing it. Yeah, I play hooker and I play forward in just a year. What position do you play, by the way?
So I play flanker, but a lot of the time growing up, I would play some hooker as well because it was just a position I knew how to play. So I was happy to do it if it would make us better. It just wasn't my first choice.
Yeah, I'm a hooker when we have the giants next to us. Like we
Yeah.
we have a couple called Mountain Dave and Taylor, and by the descriptors you can tell that they're giant men, and
Yeah.
I'm 6'1", so it takes a little bit to have me hooked, but it's a lot of fun. What would you say to people who've never seen the sport or looking for something to do if they're considering rugby?
I mean, I would say that it's just such an amazing sport, like I said. I mean, and if, you are somebody who struggled with stress or frustrations, like you were saying, for me, rugby was a massive outlet as somebody who had struggled with anger for a lot of years, right? Like I struggled to have like a healthy outlet. And if you're somebody who was perhaps bullied by straight people or that kind of typical person, rugby is an amazing opportunity to just go out there and just go full force and tackle and not have to apologize about it. So I think that there's so much potential to express yourself in that way, but also like I think it's important to emphasize that like playing contact rugby is not the only way to get involved. Like if you're just somebody who contact is never really going to be your thing, like first of all, you don't know for sure, but second of all, if you are set in that, then play touch rugby. Like I have a local kind of team or league that I put together here of mixed kind of skill groups, of people who are 16 and have never played with people who have been playing for, 12 or 15 years. I think that it's a great way that you can get involved in the sport if you're a little bit worried about the injury aspect.
Yeah, and just to be clear, like for anybody listening, rugby doesn't discriminate. Like whatever you look like, whatever fitness level you are, there's a spot for you.
Exactly.
I think one of the most dangerous guys I've ever seen rugby was my former captain Shu, who's like 5'6" and just like a rocket, and he will shred you. And
Yeah.
then on the other hand, we have like this twink who is just like the score master. So it doesn't matter what you look like, it doesn't matter what your body type is. We love you in rugby. There's a place for you on the chessboard.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, one of my best high school teammates was, 5'2" and 120 pounds, but he was an all-state wrestler, so he was an incredible rugby player. So yeah, there really is space for everyone, and I also think that there is something to be said about the potential for inclusivity in rugby. I think that it is still a little bit all over the place, but in the places where it is done well, in those teams that foster that kind of environment, like as far as sports with a very masculine kind of reputation go, rugby does a great job of like fostering vulnerability and environments where athletes can be vulnerable and share parts about themselves. So like the tight knit aspect of the sport is something that I think, if you're somebody who hasn't been able to experience that kind of like a kinship through sport, I think rugby is one of those rare opportunities where you can really have that experience.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head there. It's all about experiential. I know the community. We're going through some stuff with the elite level in terms of inclusivity, but while that is a negative aspect of the sport, the positive is I'm seeing so many rugby clubs on a professional and grassroots level rallying to trans women to
Yeah.
fight for them to be inclusive. And I think that speaks volumes. Like the community at large is telling the senior management of the sport on a world level, like, we don't want this. Nobody asked for this. What are you doing? And I think that's great.
Yeah.
Um,
It is really great. I mean, I think we still need to be a little bit louder. I think that we are seeing some of the signaling from the higher levels of the sport, but we still haven't seen statements put out by those organizations against the ban. I think Canada Rugby was one of the ones who didn't adopt the policy, but I think that I would really like to see, especially cis men in the sport, speaking up more about it, because at least, especially from my perspective as somebody who most of my friends through rugby are not involved in IGR clubs, their awareness of this and willingness to engage on this kind of thing is next to zero. So I think that there is still a lot of work to be done, just inviting more people into the conversation. But I think that, like you said, having those higher level teams take a stance on it is really important to showing people that you can come forward and you can speak about this, and you can speak on this even if you have a trans person in your life, whether or not you know it. It doesn't mean you can't speak on this issue.
Yeah, I remember when this happened in Canada, and it made me really proud to be a part of it. I was able to just make phone calls when it happened because I was working on the response team with the IGR. And for those
Mm,
listening, the IGR is the International Gay Rugby, and it's the governing body for the gay rugby clubs in the world. And within a day, myself and Jean-Francois Leberge, who's the president of Bingham Cup, which is the gay World Rugby World Cup, we were on the phone with Rugby Ontario and then subsequently with Rugby Canada, and they listened to what we had to say and then they made a joint statement to be like, we don't
yeah.
want this. This is not happening here. And I echo your sentiments. I urge people who are interested in rugby, who are interested in equality, which everybody should be, just do a little bit of research and reach out and start lighting those fires, because that's the only way we're gonna get real change.
Yeah, I think it is important to note, if you are somebody who is identifies as non-binary or a part of the trans community and you're listening to this and you're wondering about rugby and if it's inclusive, that ban that World Rugby put forward doesn't represent what you see at the grassroots level. Like you said, even the individual countries have rejected that ban, saying that it doesn't represent the values of the sport and that it's, not based in sufficient data and science to back that kind of a decision. So I think that it is important to know that even though we got that signaling from the very top, like you said, there has been such a strong message from other countries to say that no, this is not what we're going to go by. We want this to remain a sport open to everybody.
Yeah, so tell me more about you because your Instagram is very interesting. You've definitely become an influencer, and then like there is okay, I'm dying on the rugby pitch. By the way, I used to wrestle, and here's my pig. So I feel like there's a lot more to you than being that gay rugger. And you also have like a sophisticated gaming helmet. So is it good to assume? Is it right to assume that you're a gamer too?
I do game here and there. I guess that's a little hobby of mine to unwind at the end of a long night. Yeah, I mean, I think that was also part of the reasoning behind the handle, right? Is I was worried about this idea of only being defined as one thing, and I was like, I know that I'm not just one thing. Like if people want to put me in that and have that kind of perception, then like cool. It's not really something that I can control or you know not worth spending time thinking about. So yeah, I like my Instagram to just be like what my life is. I mean, I think so many people get caught up in being like, "Oh, my Instagram's got to be my brand and it's got to be consistent." And I'm like, my life's not very consistent. Like I've got a whole bunch of stuff going on, and I like to just have fun and post things that I enjoy.
I low key want to meet the pig.
You should. Mamie is wonderful. She's a little bit grumpy right now because she had to stay in for the winter. Obviously, it was quite cold, so she's got a little bit of cabin fever. But she'll come around.
And what games do you play? Because Mojo's a big part of Mojo brand is like we are all nerds here.
Oh, really?
I'm the resident comic book nerd for the channel.
Yeah, I've actually, and I mean, especially since I came out, things I haven't had as much time to game as I may like. But I have really mostly just been playing Call of Duty Warzone because I'm boring and basic. That's been like most of what I've been doing for the last few months. But I like all the classic. Like I'm a huge fan of Smash Bros. Like I'm a huge fan of all the old school like GameCube, N64, like pretty much everything. I had an old Sega Genesis. I'm a big fan of the Sega Genesis. I had an Xbox. I had a PlayStation. So yeah, anything that's not computer games because I just don't have a gaming computer. I'm all in on it.
Nice. Were you a fan of the Sonic the Hedgehog adaptation of the movie? Because unless you're a
Oh, the
fan,
adaptation of the movie. Ooh. I thought you were saying I thought you were saying the games. I almost got trapped into something there.
I
I
didn't see
haven't seen the movie. I haven't seen it yet. I saw
uh,
I saw the trailers and I think that was enough.
same. I was just like, I don't want this. I don't think anybody asked for this either. Why are we here?
Nobody asked for it, and yeah, I have not ventured into that territory. I'd like my memories of Sonic to stay as they are.
And what about the wrestling? That was a random post. Like you wrestled before you were in rugby, or like
So yeah, I mean, part of the reason I posted that is just because there were the Olympic trials over the weekend for the USA, and I was watching. I was reliving the glory days of my whole 2 years of wrestling. So I started wrestling, and this is a theme throughout my life, but I started wrestling to get better at rugby. I started playing rugby when I was 16, and the following year or following season, I picked up wrestling. So I did that for 2 seasons, literally just as a way to get better at tackling and playing and all that. My wrestling career did come to a bit of an unceremonious end though when I dislocated my elbow in a tournament. Yeah,
wow. For me, like we don't really do those sports in the Caribbean. We're
I
very much
know. Yeah.
soccer, cricket, rugby, and running sports. So when I see people like my rugby coach, she's like, "Oh, I'm going to curling." I'm like, "Is that thing with rocks that you do?"
Yeah, not a lot of curling in Trinidad and Tobago, I would imagine.
No, no. I just want to be the fancy guy that throws the rock down the pathway. I think that's my calling.
I mean, our high school did have a curling team, so I'm not going to pretend like we were, we didn't have it. So there was legit like state championships for curling, and we were one of two schools that had curling in the entire state. So it was like us playing against ourselves in the final of every single year's state tournament. But you guys don't really have wrestling in Canada either. It's not really a big
I
thing up there.
I don't know, like the whole landscape of like things that kids do in school here versus things that we do in Trinidad is so wildly different.
True. I would imagine. No, I don't think Canada is really known for their wrestling heritage. But I could be
No,
wrong. Somebody might cancel me. I don't know, but I I don't think so.
And how did you meet your partner? How did you meet Fergus? And what's the story there, if you're comfortable talking about that?
Yeah, of course. I feel like at this point I've had to talk about it so much that it's definitely I'd say it's fair game. Um, yeah, no. So I met him. He was here in 2017. He was here just doing research with Harvard Laboratories. He lives in London usually, so he was here abroad doing a year of research. Yeah, on sleep deprivation, and so I just
Casually a researcher for Harvard.
it's we keep it casual here. And so I met him, I just met him online and we ended up dating shortly after that. And yeah, we ended up dating for the entire year that he was here. And, we pretty much spent all the time possible we could together. He met my family. He brought his family over from the UK when they visited him to meet my family as well. So we were in it pretty deep. And then he left to go back and we were like, oh well, I guess we're gonna have to leave this relationship as a memory. And obviously that didn't happen. And we decided to do it long distance, and here we are 3 years later.
Yeah, wow, congrats. That's cool. And he's a doctor, is what I'm hearing, or a researcher of some sort.
So he did a degree in biology at Imperial College, and then he did that research, and now he is in his second year of medical school at King's College.
Nice. So he can patch you up when you get broken down. That sounds like it's a good symbiosis.
Yeah, that was the idea. Figure I could have somebody to take care of me as I get old and frail.
And direct referrals isn't bad either.
Yeah. Well, in fairness, I was seeing him before he chose to go down the doctor path, so I
Maybe
was
you
there
might be
before.
inspiration. Oh, well, I think we're going to bring the talk to close. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we jump off? I think we've covered pretty much everything besides, like, what is your favorite food? What's your favorite song?
Um, I would just say that Canada's awesome, and I would like to go there. I mean, I'm hoping to do a lot of traveling around and either speaking engagements and even going to your club. I would love to meet you guys someday and just you know share my story, but also just connect with a lot of people in the community who I haven't had a chance to, because when you're closeted, you don't really get a chance to connect with other LGBTQ athletes specifically. So, yeah, I really want to go there, and I think that Canada may be even nicer place in terms of being accepting and open-minded than the United States. So I wouldn't mind getting up there sometime soon. So call me if you're a team and you want to play.
Well, let's take you to Bingham. Like, I will hold you to that.
I'm gonna go to Bingham. I'm definitely gonna go to. So I was gonna my original like coming out plan was that I was gonna come out at Bingham, and then I was just gonna do that. I'd planned to bring my family up there from the U.S. because we're in Boston and it wasn't gonna be that far. So yeah, I really wanted to go to Bingham, and I was at the 2018 Bingham Cup, but I couldn't play because I had a broken hand.
Yeah, 2022. You're more than welcome. I'm officially co-opting you for Muddy York.
I will be there. I will definitely be there. But unfortunately, I think the World Barbarians may have already gotten their claws into me.
That's okay. We'll send you a form and some merch. It'll be great. The thing about Bingham that I've heard, because I've never been, I was really looking forward to going this year, but it's so fluid in terms of, so there are three teams in Canada that are LGBTQI plus, and that's Montreal, Armada, Ottawa Wolves, and Muddy York. And we have different skill levels. And then now there's going to be a fourth Canadian team because we're doing a team called Queens of the North. So people can go in between and just play as much rugby as they want and different levels. So
Are you guys doing like a partnership with Brooklyn Heights and Priyanka? Is that like a is that the
well,
same?
I actually manage Scarlet Bobo, so
Really?
I have my own Queen of the North.
That's awesome. No, Scarlet. Honestly, Scarlet. When I watched that finale, I was like, Scarlet Bobo might have just won Drag Race. Like
Yeah,
I
we actually have a documentary coming out about Scarlet's. I co-produce a competition here called Empire's Ball, and we have a documentary coming out on Amazon, OTV, and Apple TV on the
cool.
15th.
Well, if Scarlett ends up seeing this, you're awesome, and I enjoyed watching you on Canada's Drag Race.
I'll connect you guys on Instagram because she's also, it's so funny. My team competed in her competition and came fourth. Like
Oh my
they experienced drag queens,
god.
and she's obsessed with us. She's like, I had her do, I don't know if you're part of the Rainbow Ruggers community. Have you heard about that?
No, I don't think I've heard about that.
So a bunch of gay people got fed up of the, have you heard about the queer, sorry, the no normies chugga thing that happened on Facebook?
Yes, yes, and I was in that group until I got kicked out for, calling people out on stupidity.
Right. So we left and we created our own thing, and it's called Rainbow Ruggers. And so she hosted our Christmas party
Oh
with
my god.
Travis from the pit crew. So she's deep in the
Okay.
rugby. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Travis as well. He follows me on Insta.
Yeah, yeah. Travis is a lovely, lovely fella.
Yeah, very nice.
We're having our 1 year anniversary this weekend. If you want to come and meet some queer rugby players from the US, we're a good place for you to start.
Send me the info. I mean, I don't know what time it is and what my schedule will be, but if I'm free, I'm down.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't know that group was a thing, honestly. I
we'll add
knew.
each other on Facebook, and then I'll add you to the group. You definitely be a celebrity. They all know who you are.
I'm down for it. Yeah, I really didn't know that that group was a thing. I knew that group, the Chuggers group, had kind of devolved, but I didn't realize that we had spawned a queer one in its wake.
Yeah, it's all about boat races, drag, lip sync battles, and memes. So it's quite healthy. And occasional grinder support.
Yeah, yeah. So a bit of a different vibe. Yeah, a bit of a
Yeah,
different
slightly different, less homophobic.
vibe. I'm always up for that.
Yeah, well, thank you for being a part of MOJO Talks. You're one of my test pilots. Again, this is my second interview, so I hope I didn't screw up too badly. I have to go through it to make sure.
No, you're all good. It's great talking to you. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Well, thank you for what you're doing for the community as well. I hope that as a member leading the rugby community, that you get to see the kind of change that you're looking for. I'm very hopeful that it's going to happen. So I think we're going to live to see some more queer kids playing the sport.
I hope so. I mean, if there's one thing that I hope I can do is have some, queer kids out there say, you know what, rugby, I could actually do that. I think I'll go tackle some of the straight kids at my school.
Yeah, yeah, it's exciting because like I'm wearing the Toronto Arrows hat because Bill Webb is like, how do I get more queer kids into the sport so I can take them to the pro level? Like you need to
Yeah.
like, are you guys want to start a kids program? Like, what are you gonna do to make rugby more? And he holds us very accountable for being community leaders here. And I think it's great to see people like that with that kind of influence, very invested in growing the sport within the community.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've met Bill actually in passing a couple of times. I think I've actually played against the Arrows more than any MLR team. I'm pretty sure I've played against them 4 times. Like,
Well, I mean, if you want to move to Canada,
I mean, hey, anything's on the table at this point, but I think my next move would probably have to be a bit closer to Fergus. Otherwise, I don't think he'd be too happy.
he could just do medicine here. It'll be fine. We'll make it work. I can be a manager. I'll manage you and get you on Drag Race Canada. I think that can be your next step.
Yeah, I think I might have some visas that may need to be sorted before that's possible, but I'm open to it.
Cool. Well, thank you for your time. Scratch your pig behind the ear for me. Quite cute.
I will. I'll send Mamie the rescue pig all of your love.
Thank you. And this has been MOJO Talks. It's been MOJO Talks with that gay rugger. His handles are going to be at the bottom so that you can experience the experience.
The chaos that is my page, yes.
It's quite fun. It's quite fun. And yeah, I'll see you at Bingham.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait. That's going to be awesome.